The first signal arrived quietly, almost as if the universe were testing humanity. At first, the scientists at the Earth orbital station thought it was a glitch, a faint series of pulses in a language that had no rhythm familiar to human ears. But when the pulses repeated, regular, and persistent, they realized it was not a mistake. It was a call from somewhere far beyond the known borders of the solar system. Dr. Elena Rivas, one of the leading astrophysicists at the station, stared at the screen with wide eyes. "This is not just a ship passing by," she whispered. "This is someone asking for help." It was an alien language, alien in the truest sense. The symbols twisted and shimmered, almost alive, but their meaning was clear. The sender was requesting refuge. The message did not include demands. It did not speak of power or conquest. It spoke of fear. It spoke of being rejected. Earth's leaders convened immediately. The United Earth Council, a gathering of representatives from every major nation, debated fiercely. Many voices were cautious. "We do not know who they are," warned one diplomat. "They could be dangerous. They could carry diseases unknown to us. We cannot risk Earth's safety for strangers. We are the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have always helped those who cannot help themselves. This is not just a matter of compassion. This is an opportunity to show what humanity can do." A team of scientists, engineers, and linguists would be sent to meet them, to ensure the aliens were indeed in need and not a threat. The alien ship approached slowly, almost as if it were tired. It was massive, larger than any human vessel, yet its structure seemed fragile. The hull was cracked in places, and soft glows leaked from broken panels, giving it a ghostly appearance. There was no sound, only the faint pulses of light that had first reached Earth. Inside the ship, the aliens were struggling. They were tall, their bodies slender and luminous, with skin that shifted colors depending on emotion. Their limbs were delicate, almost fragile, yet their eyes burned with intelligence. They whispered to each other in a language humans could not understand, but the fear in their movements was universal. They had been rejected by their own kind, abandoned in the cold void of space because they were considered defective. They were weak in the eyes of their civilization, and that weakness had become a death sentence. When the human team boarded the ship, they were struck by the quiet despair that filled every corridor. The aliens did not resist or hide, they simply observed. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Its skin glowed a soft blue, a signal of cautious greeting. "We come in peace," Dr. Rivas said carefully, her voice trembling slightly. "We are here to help you." There was no doubt now. These beings were alone, truly alone, and Earth had the chance to save them. The aliens were guided carefully toward Earth. The journey through space was tense. Many on Earth watched anxiously as the fragile ship drifted closer. Engineers worked tirelessly to calculate trajectories and prevent even the smallest collision. During the journey, the humans began to learn more about the aliens. They communicated through a combination of light patterns, gestures, and the AI translator. Each interaction revealed more about their past. Their civilization had been highly advanced, but brutally selective. Those who could not meet exacting physical or mental standards were cast out, left to fend for themselves in the vast expanse of the galaxy. The aliens told of worlds they had never seen. They spoke of cities that floated above oceans of liquid crystal, of machines that could heal entire ecosystems in days, and of knowledge so vast that humans could only dream of it. Yet for all their wonders, they had been thrown aside. It was hard for the humans to imagine such cruelty. On Earth, no one would be abandoned simply for being different. This contrast made the human team proud and more determined to help. When the ship finally entered Earth's orbit, the aliens hesitated. They had never known kindness from anyone, and the warmth of the planet's signals was strange and new. Slowly, cautiously, they allowed themselves to be guided into a specially prepared habitat. The habitat was a marvel of human ingenuity. Engineers had designed it to meet the aliens' delicate biological needs while ensuring safety for both species. The air was filtered and humidified to match their home atmosphere. Gravity was adjusted to their comfort. Lights shimmered softly to replicate the patterns they were accustomed to. The first steps of the aliens into the habitat were careful. They moved slowly, testing the ground. Some trembled, unsure of what awaited them. Others paused to look around, their glowing eyes reflecting curiosity and awe. Dr. Rivas knelt beside one of the smaller aliens. "You are safe now," she said. "We will help you." The aliens were shy at first, reluctant to speak or move too far from their quarters. But the humans were patient. They learned that touch was comforting for some, while others preferred distance. They discovered that colors, sounds, and small gestures could communicate emotions more effectively than words. In the quiet moments, the humans also learned about the aliens' strengths. Though their bodies were considered weak by their own civilization, their minds were sharp, filled with creativity and knowledge. They devised small tools and energy systems using materials humans provided. They suggested solutions to problems that had baffled engineers for weeks. It became clear that the aliens were not weak at all. They were just different. And humanity had the chance to see what happened when someone rejected by their world was given a second chance. That night, as the Earth slept, the aliens gathered in a central chamber of the habitat. They shared their memories, not just of what they had lost, but of what they had learned. They spoke of ingenuity, of survival, and of hope that had not yet died. For the first time in their lives, they felt understood, not judged. Above them, humans watched from observation decks. They could not hear the words, but they could see the glow of the aliens, pulsing in patterns that spoke of emotion and thought. Dr. Rivas smiled softly. Humanity had done something remarkable. They had offered shelter to the rejected, and in doing so had shown the galaxy that compassion and courage were not weaknesses. They were the truest forms of strength. The first day ended without incident. The aliens rested, exploring their new home cautiously. The humans documented every detail, from biological needs to communication patterns, preparing for the next steps in what would be a long journey of integration and understanding. For the first time, the aliens slept without fear. They had survived abandonment, betrayal, and rejection. Now, on a distant blue planet, they could rest, knowing that at least one world believed in them. And on Earth, a quiet pride settled over those who had watched the events unfold. Humanity had acted not out of fear or gain, but out of empathy. They had reached across the stars to touch the lives of those who had been cast aside. And though the future was uncertain, the first bridge between two very different species had been built, strong and unwavering. In that moment, as Earth turned beneath them and stars shone above, both humans and aliens understood something simple, yet profound. To be rejected did not mean the end. To be offered shelter, kindness, and understanding could change everything. And so, the story of those who were rejected began, not with despair, but with hope, as Earth became the haven where they could begin again. The first week on Earth was quiet but full of learning. The aliens moved cautiously through the specially built habitat, still unsure of how to interact with their new home. Everything was strange, air that smelled different, gravity that felt heavier than what they had known, and sounds that humans barely noticed but seemed overwhelming to them. The humans, in turn, watched them carefully, noting every movement, every reaction. Dr. Elena Rivas spent most of her days observing the aliens, recording their behavior and attempting to communicate. The AI translation system had improved slightly, allowing simple concepts to be exchanged. It was slow at first, but even the smallest progress thrilled the humans. One of the smaller aliens, whose glowing skin pulsed a soft yellow, began mimicking human gestures. A wave of the hand, a nod of the head. It was a start. The aliens were cautious with food. Their species did not eat in the same way humans did. Some consumed energy directly through light, while others required specialized nutrients. Scientists created small devices to simulate their original diet, using Earth materials. Watching them eat was both fascinating and touching. They moved delicately, handling everything with care, as if afraid of breaking it, or themselves. Despite their fragility, the aliens showed intelligence far beyond what humans expected. They analyzed energy flows, studied the air filtration systems, and even offered suggestions for improving the habitat. One alien suggested a way to recycle water more efficiently using a combination of Earth and alien technology. Engineers were skeptical at first, but quickly discovered the method worked. The aliens' contributions made life easier for humans and proved that the so-called weak beings were anything but weak. However, not all interactions were smooth. Some humans struggled to understand the aliens' emotions. The glowing skin, which changed colors to reflect mood, was difficult to interpret at first. A red hue did not always mean anger, and a blue glow did not always indicate sadness. Misunderstandings occurred. At one point, a human volunteer approached an alien with what she thought was a friendly gesture, but the alien recoiled, glowing a sharp violet. The volunteer stepped back, embarrassed, realizing she had misread the signs. The aliens themselves were learning about humans. They were fascinated by resilience, adaptability, and the ability to survive in harsh environments. They watched humans work together in teams, solving problems in real time, and they began to understand why humanity had never been abandoned by its own kind, even in times of extreme hardship. One day, a small group of humans decided to take the aliens outside the habitat. The aliens had never felt natural sunlight, wind, or rain. Stepping onto Earth's soil, they paused, their glowing forms flickering with uncertainty. Dr. Rivas held her hand out, smiling. "It's safe," she said. "This is your new home. You can explore if you want." They marveled at the feeling beneath them, so different from the smooth, artificial floors of their ship. Some of them reached toward the sky, fascinated by clouds drifting above. A few laughed, soft, musical sounds that humans recognized as joy. It was the first time the humans realized how much the aliens had missed out on, and how small acts of freedom could bring immense happiness. As the days passed, cultural differences became more apparent. The aliens had never experienced conflict resolution in the way humans did. In their civilization, disagreements were ignored or suppressed, and those who could not assert themselves were left behind. On Earth, the aliens had to learn patience, compromise, and cooperation. They struggled at first. Even small disagreements over how to arrange their quarters or allocate resources caused tension. Humans stepped in as mediators, showing the aliens that collaboration could create better outcomes for everyone. Some humans also faced challenges. Fear of the unknown crept into the minds of those who had not worked directly with the aliens. Rumors began spreading in nearby towns about strange creatures being sheltered on Earth. Certain media outlets exaggerated the story, claiming the aliens might be dangerous. While most humans understood the importance of compassion, there were those who doubted the wisdom of helping beings they barely understood. Despite these challenges, bonds began to form. Human volunteers spent hours teaching aliens to play simple games, sharing stories about life on Earth, and explaining human traditions. In return, the aliens shared knowledge that seemed almost magical. They demonstrated methods to purify water in minutes, suggested ways to generate energy without burning fuel, and even helped humans solve complex mathematical problems faster than any computer could. It became clear that this relationship was not one-sided. Humans had given shelter, but the aliens brought something equally valuable: insight, knowledge, and the reminder that intelligence could take many forms. The team discovered that the aliens' perception of the universe was different but deeply profound. They thought in layers, seeing patterns in nature and energy that humans had overlooked for centuries. The bond between species grew strongest when they worked on joint projects. Engineers and aliens collaborated on improving the habitat, creating new systems that combined the strengths of both civilizations. One project involved designing a new form of communication device that allowed humans and aliens to share ideas more intuitively. Another focused on developing an energy shield to protect the habitat from environmental hazards. Even in leisure, the partnership blossomed. Humans and aliens explored each other's creativity. Aliens created beautiful light displays that danced across the walls of the habitat, while humans introduced music, painting, and storytelling. These sessions became a form of therapy, helping both species adjust to life together and building trust that would be crucial for the future. Yet, not all aliens were comfortable. Some still remembered the harsh judgment of their own kind and feared that humans might eventually reject them as well. One of the taller aliens, whose skin glowed a deep blue most of the time, remained in isolation for several days, refusing to eat or communicate. Dr. Rivas visited often, speaking softly and offering gestures of reassurance. Slowly, the alien began to respond, flickering a faint green as it realized no harm would come. This moment reminded the humans that healing from rejection took time, patience, and understanding. As the aliens adjusted, humanity began to recognize its own strengths. The aliens' initial perception of humans as simple and weak was challenged by every act of ingenuity, courage, and kindness. Humans had created a home for beings they did not fully understand. They had learned new ways to communicate, adapted their technology, and even put themselves at risk to protect lives that were not their own. One evening, the habitat's observation deck was filled with both humans and aliens watching the sunset. The light reflected off the aliens' glowing skin, creating a mesmerizing display. For a moment, words were unnecessary. They shared a silent understanding that went beyond language. They had survived the first trials, and they had begun building something new together. But even as hope grew, there was an undercurrent of unease. Humanity knew that the aliens, former civilization, might not remain silent. The species that had rejected these beings was powerful, and it had ways of enforcing its will. Some humans wondered if offering shelter might eventually bring danger. Others, however, believed that fear should not dictate actions. If humanity had learned anything from history, it was that compassion and ingenuity often created stronger defenses than weapons alone. Meanwhile, the aliens continued to surprise the humans. They began experimenting with human technology, adapting it to their own needs. One group created a hybrid energy system that produced more power using fewer resources. Another group suggested ways to improve communication networks, allowing humans to share information faster and more securely. Each innovation demonstrated that strength was not always visible. Sometimes it came from intelligence, creativity, and the willingness to adapt. By the end of the second week, the aliens were walking freely in the habitat. They explored the gardens, marveled at Earth's natural beauty, and engaged with humans in meaningful ways. Trust had grown on both sides. The aliens learned to appreciate human patience, perseverance, and empathy. Humans discovered that these beings, once considered weak, possessed wisdom and skills that challenged their assumptions. Dr. Rivas reflected on the progress as she observed the aliens. "They were rejected," she whispered to a colleague. "But we gave them shelter, and in return they have already taught us more than we could imagine." There would be challenges ahead: cultural differences, fears from outsiders, and the possibility of the aliens' former civilization intervening. But they also understood that Earth had become a beacon of hope. It was a place where those who had been cast aside could find refuge, and where humanity's ingenuity, courage, and empathy could shine. In that quiet habitat, under the gentle hum of technology and the soft glow of alien skin, something remarkable was happening. Two species, once strangers, were learning to live together. They were discovering that strength was more than physical ability or numbers. It was compassion, creativity, and the willingness to help those who had nowhere else to go. And for the first time, the aliens felt that maybe rejection did not define them. Shelter did not just provide safety. It offered the chance to grow, to learn, and to thrive alongside a species that valued life in all its forms. The calm that had settled over the habitat was fragile. For 2 weeks, humans and aliens had begun to trust each other, sharing knowledge, learning new ways to live together, and discovering that differences could be strengths. But that peace ended the day the first signal arrived from the aliens' former civilization. It came as a silent warning, not through words, but through a ripple of energy detected by the orbital sensors. The humans could feel it in the hum of their machines, a pulse in the satellite readings that did not belong to any known natural phenomenon. Dr. Rivas stared at the data, her heart tightening. "They are coming," she whispered. The aliens' luminous skin shifted rapidly, flickering between red and violet. Fear, anger, and confusion mixed in a display that humans had come to understand. They had never faced this outside Earth. The delegation from their civilization was not a small patrol. It was a fleet, sleek and imposing, designed to overwhelm and intimidate. The aliens explained what they had seen in their own history. The fleet enforced strict conformity, punishing those who were considered weak, defective, or disobedient. The very beings humanity had welcomed had survived against these forces before, but only by hiding, fleeing, and enduring long years of isolation. The human leaders convened quickly. Military officers, scientists, and diplomats gathered to discuss options. Some argued for caution. "We do not yet know the intentions of the fleet," warned General Quan. "They could destroy everything before we have time to react." Others spoke with confidence. "We have humanity's ingenuity and technology," said Dr. Rivas. "And we have allies who have survived against incredible odds. We can prepare and we can defend what we have built." The aliens shared knowledge about their enemies, tactics, weaknesses, and strategies. They explained that the fleet relied on overwhelming numbers and speed, assuming their targets would surrender without resistance. They had never faced a civilization like humans, who could improvise, adapt, and use unexpected methods to overcome challenges. The habitat itself became a laboratory and a training ground. Engineers modified the energy shields using alien designs. Humans built sensors and early warning systems that could detect fleet movements before they entered Earth's orbit. The aliens helped design communication networks that allowed real-time coordination, something neither species could have done alone. At the same time, the aliens were learning human ways of preparation. They observed how humans worked in teams under stress, how civilians volunteered for support roles, and how strategies were discussed openly, with input from anyone who could contribute. The aliens were impressed. They had never seen such a combination of intelligence, creativity, and courage applied so openly. The first direct communication from the fleet arrived 2 days before they were expected to reach Earth. A voice, cold and mechanical, echoed across the communication channels. "Return our property," it said. "Those who are defective must come with us. Refusal will be met with force." Fear ran through them, but they also felt a spark of hope. They had never expected anyone to stand with them. Dr. Rivas responded firmly. "They are no one's property," she said. "They have a right to live, to choose, and to be free. Earth will protect them." Ships larger than any human city floated above the planet, their surfaces gleaming with alien metal. They moved in precise formations, ready to strike. But humans did not panic. They had prepared. Satellites and orbital stations adjusted positions, deploying energy nets and shields designed to slow the fleet. The first clash was subtle but telling. A small fleet of ships attempted to breach Earth's outer defenses, only to find themselves slowed and rerouted by human technology, enhanced by alien design. The humans had learned to anticipate patterns, to read signals, and to react in ways that the attackers did not expect. Even with superior numbers and firepower, the invading fleet struggled against an opponent that refused to follow predictable rules. On the ground, humans and aliens trained together. Civilians were taught basic defense protocols, engineers worked on emergency repairs, and scientists monitored fleet movements. The aliens demonstrated technologies that allowed humans to predict energy flows and shield integrity with astonishing accuracy. It was teamwork on a level neither species had experienced before. Amid the tension, small moments of humanity shone. Children waved to the glowing aliens as they moved through training corridors. Volunteers brought food and water to exhausted teams. Engineers paused to admire the intricate work of alien tools, finding beauty in the precision. These moments reminded everyone that they were fighting not just to survive, but to protect a vision of cooperation and hope. As the fleet drew closer, the aliens shared one of their most surprising ideas. Their species had the ability to manipulate certain energy fields in ways humans could not, but they had never applied it to defense. With guidance from humans, they created a series of energy pulses designed to disrupt the fleet's navigation systems without causing harm. It was a risky maneuver, but necessary. The first engagement came at dawn. Earth's shields flared as the fleet attempted to breach the atmosphere. Pulses of energy from the aliens' devices rippled through the fleet, causing disorientation. Human pilots and defense teams moved swiftly, taking advantage of the confusion. The attackers had not anticipated resistance of this kind. They expected submission, not strategy, ingenuity, and collaboration. The aliens, who had once believed themselves weak, now moved with confidence. They adjusted energy flows, repaired minor damage, and provided real-time analysis of the fleet's movements. Humans followed their guidance, coordinating strikes and defensive maneuvers with precision. It was a dance of intelligence and courage, each species learning from the other. Despite the chaos, no life was lost. The humans refused to use lethal force unless absolutely necessary, focusing instead on defensive measures and disruption. The fleet was forced to retreat partially, unable to achieve the swift victory they had expected. For the first time, the aliens realized that being defective in their own civilization did not mean they were powerless. With humans, they could achieve what once seemed impossible. After the engagement, both species paused to assess the results. Humans worked tirelessly to repair shields and restore systems. The aliens analyzed the fleet's behavior, predicting likely next moves. Tension remained high, but so did morale. Both humans and aliens had learned that trust, teamwork, and ingenuity could overcome fear and intimidation. During quiet moments, Dr. Rivas spoke with one of the taller aliens. "You see now," she said softly, "your strength is not just in your abilities, but in your mind, your courage, and your willingness to work with others. Earth may be far from your home, but you are not alone anymore." The days following the first engagement were a whirlwind of preparation and repair. Humans and aliens continued to learn from each other. Engineers devised new defensive mechanisms, scientists shared knowledge across species, and even the youngest volunteers contributed ideas. The aliens began to experiment with combining Earth materials with their technology, creating hybrid systems that were stronger and more adaptable than either species could achieve alone. Yet the fleet remained a looming threat. The aliens shared what they knew. Reinforcements would arrive, testing both human and alien resolve. The humans did not waver. They understood that the strength of a civilization was not measured solely by ships or weapons, but by courage, ingenuity, and the ability to stand together. Late one evening, as Earth rotated beneath the quiet of space, Dr. Rivas stood beside the habitat's observation deck, watching the stars. The aliens gathered nearby, their skin glowing softly. "We thought we were lost forever," one whispered almost to itself. "We thought no one would help us. You will see that your past does not define your future." The fleet would return, and they could not predict what tactics would be used next. But they also knew that they had discovered something more powerful than fear or weapons. They had discovered unity, resilience, and the ability to turn rejection into strength. In the quiet hum of the habitat, surrounded by stars and the gentle glow of alien light, humanity and the aliens prepared for the future. Together they had survived the first test, and together they were ready to face whatever the galaxy would send next. It was not just a victory of strategy, it was a victory of spirit. Humanity had offered shelter, hope, and collaboration. The aliens had responded with courage, ingenuity, and trust. In that moment, they both understood something profound. Strength was not always visible, and weakness was not permanent. Together, they were stronger than the sum of their parts. And so, as the first fleet retreated into the darkness of space, the aliens and humans stood together, ready for the trials ahead. They had learned that even against overwhelming odds, cooperation, courage, and ingenuity could turn fear into opportunity, and rejection into a new beginning. The alarm blared across Earth's orbital network, waking engineers, scientists, and volunteers in the middle of the night. The fleet had returned. This time it was larger and more aggressive, their ships moving in tight formations with precise coordination. Every sensor, every camera, every human and alien eye tracked the incoming threat. The atmosphere in the habitat was tense but determined. Dr. Elena Rivas stood with the aliens at the observation deck, watching the approaching ships. The glow of the alien's skin reflected in her eyes, shifting rapidly between red and yellow, signals of fear, anticipation, and readiness. "We've prepared for this," she said calmly. "Trust what we've built, trust each other." Now they would show the fleet that weakness was not theirs to claim. The humans had spent the past week fortifying the habitat and the orbital network. Engineers and aliens worked side by side, combining technologies to create new defenses. Shields now pulsed in multiple layers, able to absorb energy from different sources. Sensors could detect changes in ship velocity and predict trajectories before they happened. The aliens contributed energy manipulators that disrupted the fleet's signals, making coordinated attacks more difficult. When the first wave of ships reached Earth's orbit, they unleashed a barrage designed to intimidate and overwhelm. Energy beams streaked toward the planet, hitting the outer shields with explosive force. Humans and aliens worked together, diverting energy, repairing shields, and analyzing weak points. It was a complex dance of coordination that required every mind and hand. For every attack, humans found a creative response. Satellites were repositioned to create temporary barriers. Orbital drones moved to intercept projectiles, guided by both human intuition and alien energy calculations. Civilians on the ground contributed by monitoring communications and supplying engineers with the resources they needed. The aliens suggested minor adjustments, like slightly bending energy waves to confuse targeting systems, which humans implemented immediately. The fleet underestimated the power of collaboration. They had seen the aliens as weak, defective beings, and they assumed humans would surrender them. They had not accounted for ingenuity born from necessity. Every move the fleet made was met with countermeasures that were unpredictable and effective. On the habitat itself, humans and aliens coordinated evacuation drills. They did not expect the fleet to breach the atmosphere, but they prepared for worst-case scenarios. Aliens used their luminescent communication to signal shifts in defensive strategies. Their lights pulsed in complex sequences, which humans translated into real-time tactical commands. The result was a seamless integration of two species, intelligence and experience. Amid the chaos, there were small victories that inspired everyone. A human engineer noticed that one of the alien energy manipulators could be slightly modified to create a temporary shield bubble around critical systems. Within seconds, aliens assisted in adjusting the output, creating protective barriers that absorbed multiple attacks at once. A second later, a fleet ship miscalculated its trajectory and collided with a drone, further demonstrating that the attacker's assumptions were failing. The aliens, once timid and fearful, moved with confidence now. They were no longer just survivors. They were participants in the defense, contributing ideas, making calculations, and guiding human teams. One of the taller aliens suggested a method to reroute energy from unused satellites to enhance shield capacity temporarily. Human engineers implemented it immediately, and the result was a shimmering layer of protection that reflected incoming energy beams like sunlight on glass. The humans were equally resourceful. They had learned to anticipate alien tactics and were now thinking several steps ahead of the fleet. Orbital drones were programmed to mimic alien maneuvers, creating a confusing pattern that the attackers struggled to interpret. Energy pulses were sent in counter patterns that disrupted the fleet's targeting systems without harming the ships themselves. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the fleet was frustrated. Every attack was met with resistance that they had not expected. Their communications showed confusion, their formation wavered. It was clear that they had never faced an opponent like this. Humans and aliens working together, thinking and reacting in ways that combined creativity, courage, and advanced knowledge. As the first day of engagement progressed, the aliens suggested a bold plan. They proposed using the habitat itself as a beacon, amplifying signals through the energy manipulators to create an illusion of larger defenses. The fleet would perceive Earth as heavily fortified, potentially intimidating them into reconsidering full-scale assault. It was risky. If the plan failed, the habitat could be damaged, but humans agreed to try. The plan worked perfectly. Energy pulses and light displays created by the aliens made the orbital network appear far more advanced and powerful than it actually was. Fleet ships miscalculated distances and energy outputs, forcing them to scatter and regroup. Human pilots and drones used the confusion to reposition defenses and repair weak points. The aliens' innovative thinking had turned a dangerous situation into an advantage. Throughout the battle, both species learned from each other. Humans noticed subtle ways the aliens predicted movement based on energy patterns, while aliens observed human intuition, creativity, and quick decision-making. Together, they formed a combination neither species could achieve alone. It was a lesson in strength, cooperation, and the value of trusting others, even those vastly different from oneself. The fleet attempted a final strike as night fell over Earth. Massive ships descended closer, preparing to break through the upper shields. Energy beams lit the sky, reflecting off clouds and casting long shadows. The humans and aliens held their positions, ready for whatever came. Then the unexpected happened. One of the fleet's ships, overconfident in their perceived superiority, made a miscalculation. An alien energy pulse, coordinated with human orbital drones, disrupted the ship's systems, causing it to drift off course. Its energy weapon malfunctioned, forcing it to retreat to avoid collision. The remaining ships hesitated, unsure of their next move. At that moment, Dr. Rivas spoke to both humans and aliens. "This is the proof," she said. "Strength is not measured by size, numbers, or power alone. It is measured by intelligence, courage, and unity. You have all shown that today." By dawn, the fleet had withdrawn, at least for the moment. The humans and aliens remained vigilant, knowing this was only a temporary respite. Reinforcements could arrive at any time, but the victory had shown them what they could accomplish together. The aliens' former civilization had underestimated the combination of human courage and alien ingenuity, and that miscalculation had saved Earth and its new allies. In the aftermath, humans and aliens worked tirelessly to repair minor damages, reinforce defenses, and refine strategies for the future. Even in exhaustion, spirits were high. The aliens were no longer hesitant or timid. They were fully participating in planning and decision-making. Humans had discovered new ways to think and act, inspired by alien knowledge and perception. During a quiet moment, Dr. Rivas spoke with one of the taller aliens. "You see now," she said softly, "rejection does not define you. Weakness does not define you. Your choices, courage, and the willingness to stand with others, that is your strength." They had always believed in their own ingenuity and resilience. But now they saw how much more could be achieved when differences were embraced rather than feared. Strength, they understood, was not merely physical power or numbers. It was collaboration, creativity, and the courage to face fear together. By the end of the day, the habitat was alive with activity. Engineers repaired equipment, aliens suggested improvements, and civilians contributed wherever possible. They shared meals, stories, and laughter. Fear had not vanished, but it had been replaced with confidence, the knowledge that together they could face anything the universe might throw at them. As night fell once more, Dr. Rivas looked out at the stars, reflecting on what had just occurred. Humanity had faced a test and shown ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The aliens, once rejected and considered weak, had discovered their own strength and the value of partnership. And together, they had sent a clear message to the galaxy. Earth was a place where the outcast could find refuge, and where intelligence, courage, and cooperation were more powerful than fear or prejudice. And in that moment, for the first time, both humans and aliens allowed themselves to imagine the future, not one of fear, but one of possibility. They had survived the test, learned from each other, and discovered that even against overwhelming odds, unity and ingenuity could turn danger into triumph. The morning sun rose over Earth, casting golden light across the carefully rebuilt habitat. Birds sang from nearby forests, wind rustled through the gardens, and for a moment it seemed that nothing in the universe could touch this peaceful moment. Humans and aliens alike moved through the habitat with purpose, their routines intertwined. Tasks that had once been foreign were now familiar. Tasks that had once caused fear were now opportunities for growth and cooperation. Dr. Elena Rivas walked along the observation deck, watching the aliens as they explored freely. Their glowing skins pulsed with calm confidence. They were no longer timid or hesitant. They moved with an awareness born from both survival and trust. Humans were teaching them, yes, but they were learning from the aliens just as much about energy manipulation, perception, and the possibilities of seeing the world in ways humans had never imagined. The alien who had once been the most fearful, the tall one whose skin had rarely glowed green, now moved gracefully among humans, sharing ideas and offering solutions. It had begun teaching a group of young volunteers how to adjust energy flows to improve shield efficiency, a task that required precision, patience, and intuition. The humans watched in awe, realizing that their new friends were not just survivors, they were innovators. Earth's leaders held meetings to discuss the next steps. The fleet from the aliens' home civilization was still out there, far beyond reach, but intelligence suggested they had taken note of what humans and aliens could accomplish together. The lesson was clear. A species united, creative, and willing to adapt was stronger than any fleet, any weapon, or any preconceived notion of weakness. But the story was no longer about defense alone. It was about growth, about what humanity could achieve when it embraced the unknown rather than fearing it. Humans and aliens began joint projects that would have seemed impossible just weeks before. They created hybrid energy systems capable of supplying entire cities without pollution. They developed communication networks that bridged not just species, but languages and cultures. They began studying the universe together, pooling knowledge to understand phenomena that had puzzled scientists for centuries. Children, both human and alien, played together in shared gardens and open spaces. Humans marveled at the aliens' way of experiencing the world, subtle changes in light and energy that gave meaning to what humans often overlooked. The aliens, in turn, were fascinated by human curiosity and creativity, the ability to invent games, music, and art purely for the joy of exploration. These small, everyday interactions formed bonds stronger than any shield or weapon could provide. In one corner of the habitat, Dr. Rivas and a group of engineers worked on a new spacecraft, designed not for war, but for exploration. The aliens had suggested enhancements to propulsion and energy efficiency, ideas that humans eagerly incorporated. The project symbolized the partnership they had forged, two species, learning from each other, building a future together. Yet, even amid hope and innovation, there were moments of reflection. The aliens still remembered the pain of rejection, the loneliness of being cast out by their own kind. Humans listened, offering empathy and understanding. They told stories of Earth's history, of times when humans had been exiled, oppressed, or misunderstood, and how resilience had turned despair into opportunity. The aliens realized they were not defined by what they had endured, they were defined by what they chose to do next. One evening, a meeting was held to mark a symbolic moment. Humans and aliens gathered in the central chamber, the glow of alien skin mingling with human lights, creating a display of color and warmth. Dr. Rivas spoke first, her voice calm but powerful. "When you arrived, you were rejected," she said. "You were cast out and considered weak. But here on Earth you have found shelter, you have found friendship, trust, and the freedom to grow. You have discovered that your strength has always been within you, it just needed the right moment to shine." One of the smaller aliens stepped forward, its form shimmering in quiet pride. "We have learned what you mean," it said through the translator. "Strength is not only survival, strength is courage, trust, and the will to create, even when the universe says we cannot." They had seen courage in the aliens, adaptation, brilliance in their innovation, and resilience in their refusal to be defined by rejection. Humanity's ingenuity had combined with alien wisdom to form something greater than either could achieve alone. As days turned into weeks, plans began for the first joint expedition beyond the solar system. The spacecraft being prepared was not just a vessel. It was a symbol of partnership, of the belief that two species working together could reach farther than any single civilization alone. The aliens contributed navigation systems and energy technologies, while humans provided structural design and life support systems. The project required patience, creativity, and trust, and every challenge they overcame strengthened the bonds between them. Meanwhile, the fleet from the aliens' home civilization remained a distant concern. The first encounters had taught both humans and aliens that aggression alone could not overcome unity, strategy, and collaboration. Intelligence suggested that the fleet would think twice before attempting another attack, knowing that Earth had become a place where even the rejected could find allies strong enough to resist any threat. On the day the expedition ship was ready, humans and aliens gathered to witness the launch. The spacecraft gleamed in the sunlight, its hybrid systems humming with potential. Engineers checked every detail while children waved and volunteers cheered. The aliens' skin pulsed softly, a combination of excitement, pride, and anticipation. They had never experienced something like this, an opportunity to explore not just for survival but for discovery and purpose. Dr. Rivas addressed the group one final time before departure. "This is more than a journey," she said. "It is proof that when we act with courage, when we work together, and when we embrace those who are different, we can achieve greatness. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity and partnership can accomplish." Energy pulses from the aliens, systems synchronized with the human engines, creating a luminous display that filled the sky. The crowd cheered as the spacecraft ascended, carrying humans and aliens beyond the familiar blue of Earth. As the ship disappeared into the stars, the aliens reflected on how far they had come. They had been rejected, cast aside, and believed to be weak. But here on Earth, they had found strength, not in isolation but in collaboration. They had discovered the value of trust, friendship, and perseverance. They had discovered that even the most fragile life could create profound impact when given support and freedom. Humans, too, reflected. They had acted from empathy and ingenuity, showing courage when others would have hesitated. They had learned that strength could take many forms, that true leadership was measured by compassion as much as skill, and that their ingenuity could amplify the potential of those who had been cast out. Back on Earth, the habitat continued to thrive. Gardens expanded, technology improved, and the partnership between humans and aliens deepened. Joint projects, scientific discoveries, and cultural exchanges flourished. The lessons learned from those first tense weeks had transformed Earth into a beacon of hope, not just for one species, but for the galaxy. The aliens began teaching humans about their own worlds, the possibilities of energy manipulation, and methods to observe distant stars with clarity humans had never achieved. Humans, in return, shared stories of exploration, art, and philosophy, showing the aliens that intelligence was not measured solely by technology, but by creativity, curiosity, and the willingness to understand. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Dr. Rivas and a group of volunteers watched the aliens light the habitat with a display of shimmering colors, each pulse telling stories, ideas, or emotions. It was a language of light and energy, a conversation beyond words. Humans listened in awe, realizing that understanding could take forms they had never imagined. A child tugged at Dr. Rivas' sleeve. "Will they stay with us forever?" the child asked, eyes wide with curiosity. "They are already part of us," she replied, smiling. And together we will explore the universe, learn new things, and show what happens when courage, empathy, and ingenuity guide our actions. Rejection does not end a life. Shelter, hope, and cooperation can change everything. And they had learned something else. Humanity could be a family of allies, willing to fight for what was right, innovate for the future, and inspire hope across the stars. As night fell, Earth's surface and orbit were quiet once more. But in the hearts and minds of humans and aliens, the universe had grown larger, brighter, and full of possibility. They had faced rejection, threat, and fear, and yet together they had built something enduring. The story of those who were rejected had found a home. It had found friends, allies, and the courage to face the unknown. It had become a story of hope, ingenuity, and triumph, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the spark of courage and cooperation could illuminate the path forward. Humans and aliens looked at the stars, side by side, ready to journey into the unknown. They were no longer separated by fear or difference. They were partners, explorers, and survivors, and together they would shape a future that was stronger, brighter, and full of possibility than any one species could have achieved alone. In the quiet of that night, Earth itself seemed to hum with pride, a small blue planet that had welcomed the rejected, nurtured the fragile, and shown the galaxy the meaning of strength. It was not in ships, weapons, or power alone, but in courage, creativity, empathy, and the determination to build something lasting. And so, the aliens who had once been cast out and abandoned found not just shelter, but purpose, friendship, and a place in a universe that had once turned its back on them. And humanity, undaunted, clever, and compassionate, stood beside them, proving that even in the vast, uncaring cosmos, courage and ingenuity could make a world not just survive, but thrive.